Welcome back to St. Thomas Aquinas for Everyone. I'm Dave Palmer, and we are now in the second part of the Summa. Remember, the Summa basically has four parts. The second part has two parts. The first part is called Prima Pars, and then you have Prima Secunda, which we're in now, and then Secunda Secundae, which is the second part of the second part, and then Tertia Pars. And then to complicate things even more, there's a supplement at the end after Thomas quit writing the Summa, but that's a long time from now. We'll get to that in a future video. So we are in section number 2, which is really cool. Prima Secunda of the of the Summa, and now we're talking about man's last end. Remember, the whole first part of the Summa was about our last end being God. We learned about God, his attributes and relations within the Trinity, and then we learned about the angels, we learned about man and human nature, and so really kind of learning about, I like to say, the players, so to speak, that God ultimately is everything, right? And he created the angels, he created the brute animals, the irrational animals, and all kinds of creatures, man being in some ways the most complicated and the most interesting of the creatures. And really, this is what the Summa is about, is God creating man, among other things, and then drawing us back to himself. Ultimately, about 3/4 through the Summa, we're going to be introduced to Jesus Christ for the first time as the ultimate. You have man and you have God. Man's trying to get to God. Well, here is God and man together. It's really, really cool. So remember this diagram of how the whole Summa is put together, and then of course the sacraments will be introduced way, way, way into Tertia Pars, the third part of the Summa, right? Okay, so this is an interesting part of the Summa, as we're now in, again, the first part of the second part. Question 1, Article 1. The very first thing he asks is whether it belongs to man to act for an end. Now, I think most people would say, yeah, well, of course, I act for an end. Everything I do, I get in the car and there's some end that I'm, going to the store or going to soccer practice or what have you. There's always something that we're doing. You sat down to watch this video for a purpose. You wanted to learn the Summa, right? And so everything has an end. But what I find really interesting about this is that this gives meaning to all of the various things that we do on a daily basis. We get married, we have relationships, many of us are blessed to have children. Why do we do this? What's the purpose? What's the end? Remember the final cause in the 4 Aristotelian causes that we learned about a while back? Why do we build things? Why do we have hobbies? Why do we work? Why do we have a job? Why do we have particular interests? Okay, why do we have friends? Why do we get together and have a drink or share stories or what have you? What is going on? What is the purpose? Okay, this is what Thomas is getting at. And again, if you understand this, you can understand really the meaning behind your entire life, because we don't do anything in vain. Everything we do has some kind of purpose, right? Thomas says, of actions done by man, those alone are properly called human, which are proper to man as man. And proper means specific to man, right? Now, man differs from irrational animals, dogs, cats, skunks, squirrels, right? In this, that he is master of his actions. We have free will, right? Of which man is master. Okay, wherefore those actions alone are properly called human, of which man is master. Now, man is master of his actions through his reason and will, whence too the free will is defined as the faculty and will of reason. Okay, so he's saying that really the only truly human actions are the ones that we do deliberately, okay? The things that we just do without thinking about, like breathing and moving our arms around or, what have you, those aren't really human actions. Those are, as he's going to say, actions of a man. Therefore, those actions are properly called human, which proceed from a deliberate will. And if any other actions are found in man, they can be called actions of a man, but not properly human actions, okay, since they are not proper to man as man. Now, it is clear that whatever actions proceed from a power are caused by that power in accordance with the nature of its object. But the object of the will is the end and the good, therefore all human actions must be for an end, okay? So remember, we learned about sensitive appetites and the will being the intellectual appetite. We're always drawn to something. We're always moving towards something for some reason. Okay, we wake up in the morning and there's something that we're trying to do. But what's it all mean? What's the point? Thomas says, now we're in Article 6. We jumped a few articles here. Whether man wills all whatsoever he wills, for the last end. Okay, what's the last end? We'll learn that in the future. So here again are a few things that we do. We wake up in the morning, we hit the alarm clock, snooze maybe 9 minutes, we play with dogs and have relationships, we lie in the hammock, we read books, we do a lot of things, right? So Thomas is saying here, are these all oriented to our final end? Okay, isn't that kind of an interesting way of looking at it? And as you can probably expect, he's going to say they are. Now here's the deal. Man must of necessity desire all whatsoever he desires for the last end. This is evident for two reasons. First, because whatever man desires, he desires it under the aspect of good, and if he desires it not as his perfect good, which is the last end, he must of necessity desire it as tending to the perfect good. So being on that hammock, reading the book, or waking up in the morning, it may not be the perfect good, but it's tending towards a perfect good. Isn't that interesting? I just find that fascinating, because the beginning of anything is always ordained to its completion. As is clearly the case in effects both of nature and of art. All right, when you make that first brushstroke of a painting, you're going towards the end, but it has steps on the way there. So all of our actions are just steps on the way to the ultimate end, right? Wherefore every beginning of perfection is ordained to complete perfection, which is achieved through the last end. Secondarily, because the last end stands in the same relation in moving the appetite as the first mover in other movements. Now, it is clear that secondary moving causes do not move save inasmuch as they are moved by the first mover. Okay, this is interesting because who's the first mover? God. God is, like I said a moment ago, drawing us back to himself, but he does it without compromising our free will. And this is that delicate balance or even tension between providence and free will. How much are we in control and how much is God just kind of moving the chess pieces on the board, so to speak? Therefore, secondary objects of the appetite do not move the appetite except as ordained to the first object of the appetite, which is the last end. Now, didn't talk specifically about God, but we're getting to that, all right? So isn't that interesting? I just find that absolutely fascinating. All right, so in the next question, he's going to say, what makes men happy? Now, this is actually a whole question with a lot of different articles, and Thomas is going to say, does wealth make us happy? Do honors make us happy? Does fame and glory? Does power? Does any bodily good? Cheeseburgers or hamburgers or tortillas, chips or what have you? What about pleasure? Okay, be it food or drink or sexual pleasure or what have you. Do any of these make us happy ultimately? And I think you're probably saying no, probably not. But what ultimately makes us happy? Okay, that's what Thomas is trying to drive at here, and that is going to be the subject of the next video as we continue Man's Last End Part 2 here in just a little while. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching. And comment, ask questions, get a discussion going, okay? Let me know if you're enjoying this. Are you getting it? Is it difficult? How much, on a percentage basis, how much does this make sense? All right, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. I'm Dave Palmer. This is St. Thomas Aquinas for everyone.